I'd like to dress up a little bit. Anyway.
You're all set.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We are live, I believe. We do have quorum in chambers. Welcome to Government Operations Committee, Thursday, April 4th, 2024. Susan is on Zoom, and Legislator Mezey is unable to be with us today. So let's go ahead and get started. Are there changes to the agenda? I don't think so. We do have comment from the public. Larry Hochberger is here, and you read the rules for speaking, so I'm not going to read them all out loud, but you will have 3 minutes to speak, and you're welcome to stand up at the microphone there. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I had some conversations with Rich. There's been some talk both here and elsewhere about media's relationship with government, how we can do things better, how you can support us.
Could you step a little closer to the microphone?
I'm sorry. Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay. How you can support us and we can support you. I assume most of you are familiar with the Ithaca Times. It's a 50-year-old free circulation weekly that circulates throughout Tompkins County, has more print circulation than all other area newspapers combined. We also publish 5 adjacent newspapers, 3 of which are in Tompkins County. We also have a series of special publications, magazines, special issues. We have a seniors publication. We also have space within our paper for health and business coverage. Understandably, there's been some concern about perhaps the reduced footprint of news coverage in the community and what government and news can work to do together to help each other do that better. There's 3 things that I can talk about briefly that can help that. Number 1 is, according to the state regulation that I have, a newspaper for publication of public notices can be any kind of newspaper. It doesn't specify that it has to be a daily or weekly, so no change in county law or regulations would be necessary for you to use our paid circulation newspapers for you to print meeting notices. We would welcome that both as a public interest and also, obviously, it's a means of support for what we do. The second thing is that we publish LLC notices in our weekly newspapers. And for the last couple years, the county attorney has been misinforming people who are doing LLCs that they can publish them in a free newspaper, which is not part of the state regulation. So that we are now missing out on a substantial number of LLC publications that would normally be in our paid circulation newspapers. The third aspect of this is we would welcome for you to invest the dollars that you invest to attract businesses, to do health coverage, to attract visitors, and to inform the public to use our papers, both the Ithaca Times and the others, for those. A significant amount of money goes to Visit Ithaca. We publish publications, and we would welcome your support of those publications that reach around the Finger Lakes and attract people that are coming to this area. We support the arts with reviewers. We have a wine critic. We have a restaurant critic. We feel like we're important to supporting the vibrant kind of business and entertainment and activity community that's in this area. We are open to both suggestions, tips, coverage as far as improving our news coverage. We welcome your responses. You're all invited to write to us, whether they be letters to the editor or guest columnists. We also welcome, to the extent that you have financial means that you invest in trying to attract people to the community and inform them, to use us as much as possible to support what we do. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much for being here.
Any questions?
We don't usually do questions, but Mike?
I have to apologize to Larry. Larry, I said that article was in your paper. It was not in your paper. It was in the Tompkins Weekly. I apologize for that.
Okay.
It's something I spoke to him ahead of the meeting about.
Okay.
But if I may, I just want to compliment the Ithaca Times on something that I've noticed lately, and that is a lot more letters to the editor. I think that's a real service.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for coming. All right, let's go ahead and do the minutes of March 7th. Can I have somebody move those? Rich moves, seconded by Mike. Thank you. There were a couple of manifest changes. We needed to add Lori to the list of who was in attendance, and I had a couple other just little typos that I told Jordan about. Anything else to change the minutes? Comments? All right, I guess we have to do roll call, right? Because Susan's on Zoom. So Susan, your vote.
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm yes. So thank you, that passes. We have one advisory board appointment to the Library Board of Trustees, Christina Marie Brewington, term expires December 31st, 2026. Can I have somebody move that? Rich moves, seconded by Mike. Questions, comments? All right, Susan, let's vote.
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that was good. Mike?
Yes.
And I'm yes. So that passes, thank you. All right, administration, let's,
Can I just raise a question at this point?
Yeah.
And that is, we hadn't heard much from the Library Board of Trustees here in the last couple of months. Wondered how things are going.
yeah, Leslie Tabor actually reached out to me about coming in. So it was a little soon to get on this agenda, but she's planning to come for the May meeting.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this resolution here. Budget adjustment, Department of Planning and Sustainability, Community Planning, American Rescue Plan Act funding for broadband expansion work. Can I have somebody move that? Mike, seconded by Rich. Norma, anything to say about this? Or
No, I mean, happy to answer questions. It's just, it was a crossover. It didn't get used in the previous year, so it's just being moved to this year.
okay, Rich?
Now, if you could, what is this money being used for? What are we doing with it?
Anybody here from the planning department? This was part of the, it was an over-target request to do the, it's the.
American Rescue Plan.
Yeah, and it was being used to do the research for the broadband
But
expansion.
it's not actually doing any hardware, it's just planning
Correct,
related to it?
yeah, it's planning
Okay.
related, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All right, let's vote. Susan?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm yes, that passes. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to a presentation from Karen Wichard is here from Barry Dunn, and we're gonna get an update. I hope folks had time to read through the plan, the strategic operations plan draft, and I'm gonna turn it over to Karen to talk to us.
Great, thank you. How is everybody today? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, and I think we're doing all right, despite the rain and snow.
Yeah, the weather's a little bit of a bummer. Let me share my screen. I have a brief set of slides I want to go through to orient you where we are and what's occurred since we were last together, and then I want to transition to walk you through the handout or document of the objectives. So that's our plan for our time together today. So first, is everybody looking at my PowerPoint deck and seeing that main slide? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So what we want to cover today is really, this is your first look at the objectives for the strategic operations plan. So we want to walk you through where we've been, the community and employee feedback we've received on the plan components. I spoke with you at your last meeting about get your feedback on the draft objectives and then lay out the path for the next steps to getting the plan to completion. So as you'll remember, in February and March, we've been working through some community engagement activities. We put the plan components out for a social pinpoint for a community survey. We got about 300 responses. of people weighing in on mission, vision, core values, the goal areas. We also did an employee survey, and I'll walk you through some highlights of those results as part of this presentation. And then the third thing you'll see there are focus groups. We met again with the clients that we had met with back in the fall when we were developing the plan to share with them where we were, got their feedback. It was a very good, engaging meeting. Also did employee focus groups, brought the same employees back in, invited them to see where we were, got their feedback. And then finally, Dr. Moses and Charlene met with historically marginalized members of the Tompkins County community to get their feedback on the components of the strategic operations plan. So based upon that feedback, we have made some edits to what you saw last time. So the first one you'll see here on this slide, one set of data is the results from the employee survey, the other is the community survey, and then down at the bottom are the themes from those focus groups. So the first one is the vision statement. All Tompkins County residents thrive in a supportive, healthy, and inclusive environment. You'll see that employees and communities felt that this was appropriate. They either agreed or strongly agreed by a pretty strong majority. And then the themes from the focus groups really across the board was the need to incorporate safety into the vision statement. Others said it was well stated, and then some thought it was too aspirational. So we took that feedback, and what you'll see here on the right-hand side in the updated draft vision, we added the word safe to the vision statement based upon that strong feedback around adding safety. So now the proposed draft says all Tompkins County residents thrive in a supportive, healthy, safe, and inclusive environment. The mission statement was much more robust in the conversation. So you'll see here, not as many strongly agrees that the draft mission statement hit the right marks. So the draft mission statement was Tompkins County provides exceptional values-driven services, meeting diverse community needs and contributing to a safe, thriving, and sustainable future. The themes from the open-ended responses really guided some changes you'll see on the next slide. And we heard strongly really across all the focus groups, from employees to the clients, to the folks that Charlene and Dr. Moses talked to, that values-driven was really unclear. They didn't understand what that meant. Exceptional was too aspirational for a mission statement. Remember, the mission statement is the purpose for being and why the county provides its services. And then to that point, missing core services from the mission statement draft. So what we have done is put together an updated draft mission statement that really goes back towards the notion of the core purpose of the county, which is around safeguarding and enhancing lives by the services you all provide. So the updated draft, based upon the feedback, reads, Tompkins County safeguards and enhances lives by providing services driven by the needs of its community. And when you think about the health and human services, public safety, economic development, planning and sustainability, really at the core of the work you all do, it's about safeguarding and enhancing people's experiences as they live in the community. Next, we asked about the core values and the diversity statement, and did they reflect the way that the county ought to approach its work and make its decisions? And you'll see once again, we had strong agreement in the survey, both of employees and the community. And then the themes from the open-ended response and focus groups, there was a theme and a thread in the diversity statement that you all adopted fairly recently that centers is unclear. In our committee meeting, steering committee, we talked about that while it may be unclear, it's the right language and it's the right terminology. So that's more around the education component, especially with staff. So we left that as is. There was also a strong thread that people was missing from stewardship, the core value we added after your input during our sessions in the fall, so that stewardship is not just about the financial and environmental resources, but it's about human capital and making sure that that is sustained into the future. Other folks weighed in that they looked like the core values and diversity statement as written, to consider adding transparency. And then the last bullet point really came through in the work that Charlene did around the importance of order in the core values and how they're listed. That in order to have equity and stewardship, you have to lead with respect and accountability. So you'll see us change in the order based upon that feedback that we received through the process. So the draft plan components, core values, and the diversity statement, like I mentioned, we put respect and accountability first, followed by integrity, equity, and stewardship based upon the focus group feedback. You'll see in the stewardship, we bolded that we added human, financial, and environmental resources based upon the feedback around adding people. But the rest of them remained really as they were written when you last saw them. Those were the core changes that we made there. And we left the diversity statement as is, even though we did get the feedback around centering being a little bit confusing. We think that that's something that can be navigated through community engagement and staff engagement. And then finally, the components that you saw last time that we asked the community about, and that's the strategic priority areas and goal statements. So we asked the community, we asked employees, and we asked the focus groups, are these the right areas for you all to focus operationally? And are they the right words? So you'll see the community and employees, once again, real strong agreement that these are the right priority areas, that the goal statements are the right goals. The second bullet, I think, on the open-ended responses is notable because it came through in all of the conversations we had qualitatively, and that's around that, yes, these are the right priorities and these are the right goals, but people recognize there's a lot of work to get there. The significant work needs to occur. Folks ask for more direct reference to housing. That's a little bit of a challenge given the purview of what you all do and the need in the community. So striking that balance is going to be an ongoing, really an engagement effort with the community, helping them understand who plays what role, but also recognizing the role that you all play as a convener and some of the things that you can do and being engaging more around in those activities so people understand. There was some general comments about ordering the priorities around what should come first, what's most important. We typically see that with strategic plans. And then we talk through that with focus groups around no one priority is more important than the other. They all exist together as far as the overall plan and its direction. And then finally, there was some comments around road infrastructure being missing, that it's not directly called out. So I'll pause there. That was the feedback we heard. And if you look at your handout, that's really the first page, page 1. And I want to see if there's any comments or feedback around what we heard from the community and the changes we made before we dive right into the objectives on the rest of the handout.
All right, questions?
Oh, and I realized I skipped the slide. I apologize. We did change, made some few tweaks. Organizational excellence, we changed create to foster. You'll see that bolded. And a key thing is we changed out affordable housing to attainable housing, and the goal stating for economic opportunity and quality of life. And that's really around a lot of the feedback that we heard. It's not just the affordable AMI housing product that's needed in the county, but an attainable for everybody across the board. So I apologize for that. And now, are there any questions or feedback around on this part of the plan and the components?
Great, thank you. And Susan?
I'm sorry, what are we reviewing at this point?
Just if you have questions about anything that she just talked about, or the surveys, or the changes that have been made.
But not to the objectives yet?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
Rich, you want to say something, but you're not sure.
You know, I certainly don't want to step on the third rail of the really difficult discussions we don't have in our community because we seem to speak past each other. But I would say there's a large segment of our political community that would disagree with the language that's used here. And I don't necessarily disagree with the language, but I think their reading it would not be received very well. And I'm just wondering, is there a way to make the language more accessible to the whole political community? Maybe we don't want to. But you know, I read the core values, and I agree with the addition of stewardship. And I, you know, participated in a lot of the discussion about the core values that we stated on page 28. You know, but looking at it today, I guess if we could have an explanation, how are respect and equity different?
Oh, very, very different.
Okay. Well, but if you read the words,
Well-
saying a lot of the same things.
Okay.
And
So
again, third rail, I'll back up.
no. But so page 28 is actually the beginning of Charlene's presentation.
Right. That's what we've been living with.
Right, that's what we've been working on.
Yes, that's our,
So, but in terms of how do you feel about what it's sort of been changed to?
I guess I would just like, if somebody came in and said, how are respect and equity different? How would we respond? What would we say in these words here?
Can I just?
Yeah, please.
I think those are very, very different. To me, equity is more along the lines of equal, equal opportunity, equal access to things, and respect is really taking into account who the person is, where they came from. I mean, it's going to sound silly, but good manners. I mean, you're thinking of the other person's situation and trying to respond to them in a way that's thoughtful, compassionate, and polite. And I know that sounds crazy, but they seem to me very different things.
I've been told by other members of the legislature that equality and equity are not the same thing.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they're related, but they're not necessarily the
But
same thing.
that's where I worry that we get very vague and
Right.
we will be misinterpreted.
So so is that the equity part your main concern? Like that you feel like people won't necessarily agree with that, or?
I think some people don't agree with it.
Right.
And angrily. And, we can say, well, that's just too bad. But if we're writing, our statement for the whole community, maybe we just live with it, that people disagree
Yeah,
with us.
I mean, like the other tricky thing I've found the whole time I've been working with the strategic plan process is that there's a difference between what we're doing. We're creating a plan for county government, and this is what we want our government to look like and operate like. But we're also, in a way, creating a plan for the community, and we can't force the community to follow this plan, but this is sort of our vision for what our community would look like. But those are kind of two separate things. So in my mind, like, these core values and the diversity statement and the strategic plan are what we want, how we want to operate. And that's what we can control in our government. We can't control how other political players or other municipalities or just the general public, respond to this. I don't know if that helps at all. But.
Yeah, this thought occurred to me because if you go to page 16 and the priorities, the objectives, we use the term lived experience, which I think has clear meaning for a lot of people, but for others on the political spectrum, it's a buzzword. And they would say, everybody has lived experience. Why are we, saying this? Why don't we just say experience? And I'm afraid they won't read it beyond there, or they'll just dismiss it. I don't know.
It's a good discussion to have. Susan?
I wanted to just go back to the equity and equality. They are related, but to me, equity is sort of impartial treatment, fairness. So I think it is I think that it is different from respect, because being treated fairly and impartially is not the same as being treated respectfully. So I like having those. The other thing I wanted to say is I apologize for not being there. I'm home ill. I don't have the handout, but I really liked the revision of the mission statement. I thought that was very nicely done.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of this is going to be ongoing conversation, I don't know that there is a right answer. And if some people don't like it, then hopefully we can have a conversation about it, Maybe they'll want to talk more about it and we can respectfully have a discussion.
I'm not sure they'll ever talk to us at all, but
Well,
I guess we live with that.
Maybe. Okay, all right, back to you, Karen.
All right, thank y'all. Wonderful conversation. Thank you for that. I want to start walking now through the objectives. And so the first one is organizational excellence. And really remember, this goal area is really around how do you set up operationally the county for the future to support employees, to do work more efficiently? What are the things that need to happen really internally so that you all can be successful into the future as things grow increasingly complex, as systems become more fragmented, and as retention and recruitment continues to be a challenge. But also to the conversation around equity, you'll see the very first objective there is create an organization-wide equity action plan. And I'm not going to read every objective word for word, but really the intent of that objective is to do the work, to find the data, to see where the county is today currently, as far as how its programs, policies, and practices relate to equity and equitable outcomes, and then what needs to change over time. So remember, this is a 5-year strategic plan. Objective number 1 is much longer than a 5-year program. And so, but anyway, so that's the first objective. Then you'll see the next objective is around organizational development and learning. How do you ensure that you have a good core culture and the best up-to-date supervisory training, that you have ways for staff to come together, to work together? One of the things we heard consistently from employees and in the community is the county's a bit siloed. So how do you create a strategy to overcome some of that so you can be more collaborative in your work, which is required really where we are with the programs that you implement? The third one is all about employees and employee burnout and the conditions that your employees work in. They do really hard work, and there's a need for enhanced mental health support for them, whether it's the EMS, public safety folks, or all the way through the counselors you have in whole health. So how do you organization-wide support the employees? Number 4 is, once again, around the ever-increasing complexity. So how do you increase competencies around data collection and analysis, standardize data collection, and do that across department? That will have impacts on the work you're doing towards equity, and also around helping the client experience be easier as they interact with county programs, if you have a better view of the whole person and how they're engaging with the county. Number 5, once again, is around employee engagement. We've heard a little bit in the initial work around employees not feeling all the way connected into the county government. They feel really connected inside their department, but how do you connect broadly across the organization? So a robust program there. Number 6, recruit and retain qualified employees. I think you all know that that is an ongoing challenge and struggle, so making sure that that's called out in the plan with an objective. Number 7, enhancing business processes around aligning fiscal resources and staffing to really make this plan implementable. So after we get to the final draft of the plan and the full legislature approves it, we'll do a whole set of work with county staff around implementation planning and setting forth timelines to get the work done. So that objective aligns with that work. Number 8 is developing a technology master plan. There are all different systems and processes, some managed by the state, some under complete local control. But how do you create a roadmap for what the technology needs are today, and in the ever increasingly quickly changing environment, what that might need to be in the future to run your operation as efficiently as possible? Number 9, standard operating procedures across all the departments. There's a little bit of disconnect there. So how does that work and what does that look like? 10, security and safety for county employees, making sure that is where it needs to be. We heard a lot from the community and county staff around what that feels like to go into some of the buildings right now. So working on that. And then 11, the move to the center of government, making sure that that's called out in the strategic operations plan, because that's obviously going to be a significant activity in the next 5 years. That is the horizon for this plan. So I'll stop there, and I thought that it would make sense if we went goal area by goal area and got feedback on the objectives. So what feedback do you have or questions do you have for the objectives in the organizational excellence priority area?
Anybody? Questions, Mike?
I like the emphasis on our employees. I'd like to see something about keeping in mind their need to park for their jobs.
Okay, we can put that under that safety and security. I think that all aligns.
Anything else under this topic? All right, I think it looks good.
Great. Our next priority area is equitable service delivery. So this is really twofold: equity from a racial equity standpoint, but also equity, as you all know, that long historic rural versus urban, and the challenges it creates in your community around providing services to the whole community. So the first one, the objective is improve service offerings in all parts of Tompkins County. Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
I don't know. Oh, it was background noise. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. No, you're good. So bringing services to the community where appropriate and where staff capacity can support that. You already have some bright spots beginning in that. So how do you continue that work to make it easier for people to access the important services that you all provide? Number two is around community engagement and public information, so people understand all the work that you do. We heard a lot last summer when we were doing the community engagement from folks like, I didn't realize the county did this and it's a great program, or if only I knew. So how do you really help the community understand the work that you provide and the resources available? And that is an ongoing issue with every local government we work with, but that's an important objective here. Number three, this is the prioritize hiring individuals with lived experience that was touched on a little bit ago. A big part of this one is around the grant funding and the evidence-based research around peer support and the outcomes, especially for substance use disorder, mental health treatment, and other programs where when you hire folks, and sometimes it's hard to hire folks because of civil service rules and other barriers, that they really do work magic with the clients that you're trying to serve. So how do you incorporate those community health workers, all those into your service delivery to make your services more accessible for members of the community? Number four is gets it back a little bit to that organizational excellence and the cross county collaboration, but making sure that all staff understand the services you provide. So if they're working with someone and they spot a need that really relates to a different department, a different service offering, they know about that and they can help direct and connect that member of the community. Number five, build upon the efforts underway that the whole health department has around that internal coordinating capability. So that 4 and 5 really align to make sure that you're focusing on the whole person, that people don't have to go from department to research services or division to division, but can have really a singular interaction with the county, and it becomes more seamless and easier for them to access the services. And then number 6, as you all know, transportation is a challenge. It is really not fully within your purview, but it does connect how people are able to access your services. So there are a few transportation related objectives in the plan, not a significant number because of the role of the county, but number 6 is one of them. So develop and implement a detailed mobility management strategy to help improve transportation access to the places you see there, whether it's employment, education, medical appointments, to help people who need to access the services access them. So that is the summary of where we are draft-wise with the equitable service delivery objectives, and I'm happy to hear feedback or commentary.
All right, questions, comments? Rich?
Yeah, to my prior points, I'd be more comfortable if we were more explicit in regard to number 3.
Okay.
I mean, you said specific things, and I think that would be far more understandable to members of the public than this language.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you.
I guess I'm not sure exactly what you mean. I mean, I was just reading this again. Individuals with lived experience in underserved communities. I mean, yes, we all have lived experience, but we don't have experience in an underserved community. So I think that's what, I mean, it's talking about prioritizing hiring those individuals.
Right, but what we specifically have been trying to do, people coming out of jail, prison, treatment, we're trying to help those people, and we should.
Yeah.
I think the document would be more clear and understandable to the general public if that's what we said we were trying to do. If we're trying to do it on a much broader scale. I don't think we've really engaged to do that yet. Maybe we should, but if that's our plan, we should say that.
So specifically related to people coming out of incarceration?
Well, and treatment and
Okay.
people with disabilities. And, you know, I think we're doing good things in those areas. But as I said, for a member of the general public to read this, they won't understand
Sure, okay.
where our focus has been. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I've made a note around that objective area. We can work on that offline.
Other questions or comments on this one? All right, go ahead, Karen.
All right, moving on, economic opportunity and quality of life. And this is really making sure that members of the community are able to fully experience and access a vibrant quality of life in the community, access to housing, jobs, et cetera. So you'll see the objectives here. The first one is about housing and the role that you all can play. So implement programs and solutions to encourage a housing system that meets the need of the community. And that includes everything from a low barrier shelter to permanent housing opportunities at various price points. So that's attainable housing. Number 2, work with developers, funding partners, and state agencies to continue leveraging awards made through the local community housing development fund and bringing grant funding to increase construction and rehab of affordable housing. So really focusing on those efforts and finding additional funding opportunities to meet the need in the community. Number 3 is around MWSBE programs. So in setting clear participation goals and then also helping your MWSBE business owners in the community do what they need to do. It can be a daunting task to become certified. So providing some of those trainings and supports to help historically underutilized businesses be able to participate in county spending and county program offerings. Number 4, develop and implement programs to train local workforce to better match worker skills with the needs of the living wage employers in your community. So doing that crosswalk around what are the wages and what are the skills gaps and how to help people attain those jobs through training and development. Number 5, we can't leave the airport out. They're so important to the overall economic vitality of the community. So ensure that the airport meets the needs of the community members, business and educational institutions safely, conveniently, and in a fiscally sound manner. As you know, they are working on their strategic operations plan too, and I would imagine over the life of this plan, some of those components will get rolled into this one. Number 6, encourage economic development, workforce development, and workforce housing development through support of the Ithaca Area Economic Development Program and Services. And then the IDA's tools and incentives. So that's really where you partner with other agencies and making sure that you're all rowing in the same direction. Number 7, y'all just did a resolution, but formulate and implement solutions for highest speed broadband access across the county. As we know, that's critically important for economic access and educational access. Number 8, operational oversight to ensure that the public bus service and paratransit services are operating efficiently and effectively in accordance with federal and state guidelines. So doing everything that you can within your purview to make sure that the bus and paratransit are meeting what they need to do to meet the needs of the community. And then number 9 is really around, as you all continue your equity journey, as you look at your programs and your priorities, making sure that you're also looking at the funding streams that you all control for non-mandated partnerships with nonprofit agencies, that there's a clear and consistent funding strategy that aligns with where you all are trying to go, that there's some thoughtfulness done there. So those are the objectives in economic opportunity. And once again, look forward to feedback and comment on where we are today.
Mike.
Yeah, I think this is a good list, but I have some suggested additions. Number 1, either a sentence at the end of it or a separate number, I would add something that said, encouragement of water and sewer opportunities for creation of all types of housing, which I think is an economic development issue. At number 5, ensure the airport meets I would insert the word global, ensure the airport meets the global needs of community members, particularly because of Cornell on that. And I think there needs to be an addition of something that talks about providing a good system of bridges and highways.
Okay.
Great, thanks, Mike. Any others? Rich?
I agree with Mike's comments. On 7, I'm a little uncomfortable with that one because we haven't actually had the debate about broadband. We've funded with federal money a study, but I don't know that this language locks us into acting, formulate and implement solutions. It's not saying we're necessarily going to do them, but maybe we want to make that clear that this could cost multiple billion or millions of dollars, not billions, but millions, that we're not, I think, in a position to spend. And I have spoken on this before that I think we need to be careful in not making promises that we're not prepared to keep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what the language
Yeah,
change would be.
but I think,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say, it sounds like something around adding a clause or two around funding availability, but continuing to pursue what needs to occur to make broadband available in the community.
Yeah, I think that might do it.
Okay.
Maybe formulate and implement solutions or explore funding,
Yeah.
Explore funding opportunities.
to formulate and implement solutions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
I was just going to go back to the airport one, and I wondered if, because they are doing their own plan, if it makes sense to mention that, or, that we as the county want to ensure the airport meets the needs, but it's also based on what they are developing at the same time. So I don't know if just noting that it's a collaboration or we have to align with what they're planning. It's not just up to us.
That's similar to that one. I'll find on a phrase that points to the plan that they are developing. That's not quite done. They're in the beginning processes of that to make sure that over the life cycle of this plan, that connection is strong and clear.
Great, thank you. All right, anything else on economic opportunity and quality of life? I think we're good to go on that one.
All right. So the next one, climate change mitigation and resiliency. And this one you'll see a consolidation and pointing to a lot of the effort and energy already underway and a lot of the other planning efforts. So number 1, implement actions to reduce greenhouse gases through the county energy strategy, green fleet and green buildings, and other county policies that will lead to net zero greenhouse gas emissions for county operations. Number 2, develop and implement programs to promote reduction in community greenhouse emissions and target specific hard to decarbonize sectors, trying to get to net zero for the entire community. Number 3 is important, especially from that equity lens standpoint. So identify and assist residents, especially seniors and those with those incomes, who would benefit from energy efficiency in their homes. There's grant funding available, so making sure that those programs are as robust as they can possibly be to help both from a cost standpoint and an environmental impact standpoint. Number 4, implement actions to reduce flooding and improve habitat corridors by protecting critical natural lands, well-designed roads and bridges, and increase awareness of the issues within the community. So implementing from an infrastructure standpoint, but also the community engagement standpoint. Number 5 is all about water quality. As you know, that's a significant issue in the community that we heard quite a bit about. So implement practices to improve water quality and reduce the sediment and phosphorus in ditches, streams, and lakes. Number 6, implement actions to combat the impacts of drought and improve water supply resiliency in the changing climate. Number 7 is all about emergency preparation and the potential impacts you all will see from climate change. So expand programs both within the community, so how the community prepares, which is led by your county emergency management and county operations, including continuity of operations, comprehensive emergency management plan, hazard mitigation plan, resiliency and recovery, and also making sure that that community engagement and timely updates to both general community members and municipal partners is tight and robust. And number 9 is implementing the strategies and the Rethinking Waste in Tompkins County, the circular economy plan that solid waste has been working on and how it ties into this overall priority area. Feedback for these objectives.
Comments, questions, Rich?
7 on that list has to live somewhere. You know, if I was writing it, I would have put it in health and safety, but I can understand why it's there. It's got to be somewhere, I guess.
Mm-hmm. We went back and forth more that one, though, so that's interesting that you bring that one up. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could put it in both, right? I mean, you could reference it as a dual objective.
Yeah.
You know, we find that over and over again, that health and safety issues, there's a pretty gray area between the two. Yeah.
Exactly.
Anything else? Looks like nothing else on that one.
All right, so moving along to health and safety, the last priority area. And here, once again, similar to climate change, this is really pulling up all the work that happens in some of the department levels and prioritizing and highlighting them in the strategic plan. So the first one is assess the pilot EMS rapid response program and similar initiatives to develop a long-term strategy. Number 2, continue to address the needs of older adults in the areas of community land use and services, and really through cross-agency collaboration. Number 3 is the youth. So improve the well-being of the youth in the community by implementing the Achieving Youth Results Framework. Number 4, expand education and outreach efforts under the Tompkins County Office of Human Rights to address discrimination in housing, employment, public accommodation, and education. Number 5, conduct a needs assessment of the local veterans community to inform needs-based programs and determine how the County Veterans Service Department can best expand its outreach, so really focusing on the veterans. Number 6 references the Community Health Improvement Plan, so supporting the interventions and activities outlined there. So you can prevent chronic disease, promote healthy infants and children, and the overall well-being in preventing mental and substance use disorders. So that's where that work shows up in this plan explicitly. Number 7, assess the progress of the county through the work of the Community Justice Center, Tompkins County Sheriff's Office, and other key stakeholders in achieving the plans of the reimagining public safety, and determine which initiatives will continue in 2025 and beyond. Number 8, reaffirm the county's commitment to alternatives incarceration by assessing the overall impact of the current ATIs, identifying gaps in services, and supporting efforts to fill gaps through the work of the Criminal Justice Alternatives to Incarceration Advisory Board. And number 9, further the capital plan for a new public safety building by obtaining updated cost estimates and schematic designs for improvements. Questions and feedback on this objective area?
Rich, and then Mike.
I agree with these objectives. The one I would perhaps break out is in number 6. There seem to be 2 different things going on there. One is a general health approach, and the other is mental health and substance use disorder. And not to get on my my rant here, but I don't think we are addressing the mental health and substance use disorder problems we have in our county to the degree we absolutely need to, and it should be its own objective, I believe.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would agree with that too. Yeah, good point.
All right. We'll work on getting an updated draft objective for that. Thank you all.
Thanks. Mike?
I don't know whether this would be the right place to add something, but, you know, we're committed to education in this community, and our part is our support for Cornell Cooperative Extension, our support for our community college and our support for our public library. And I think it's pretty important that our goals include a commitment to continue those kind of educational opportunities, I guess.
Yeah, good point, Mike. Those aren't really reflected in this. Yeah, Rich?
Yeah, would you add Cornell and Ithaca College as well? Because I think we do have an interest in making sure that they're vibrant and.
I have no problem with that, but I was just thinking of the three that we actually
Yes.
or financially support.
Right,
But
right.
if you want to expand it in some way with another sentence or something, that would be great.
I mean, if you look at their economic impact on our county, it's pretty big.
Sure is.
We want them to succeed, so.
Right, and that's more, in my mind, about collaboration with
Okay.
them versus, like, we don't necessarily financially support them the way that we do the others.
Yeah, maybe they're separate objectives, and now I'm thinking, where do they sit?
Right.
I think they might be back economic opportunity and quality of life.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good points. Other thoughts about this, or I guess any other things that you feel like aren't in here or need to be reflected? All right, I guess that's it for the moment, Karen.
Great. Thank you. So our next steps, I won't pull the presentation up again, but we will make these edits. I'll work with staff to circulate it back to you. We would like to get in front of the full legislature at the meeting on the 16th for their review and feedback and continued public opportunities to look at the plan. So that will occur, and then also in parallel, beginning to work with staff intentionally on the implementation planning now that we've had this good conversation. So any other questions for me before you continue on?
Well, just my question about bringing it to the full legislature. Would you do a presentation like this again, or, okay.
That would be the intention if that's what you all would like, but really walking through where we've been, the updated draft of the objectives based upon your feedback today, and then getting their input. I would like to also, you all did such a great job reviewing in advance, make sure that we get it out to the full board in advance as well.
Yeah, I think that will be key. So if people do have questions, they're prepared and we don't take up a ton of time at the next meeting.
Yeah.
But okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being here and for all your work on this. It's all very useful and helpful.
Great. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. All right. Thanks for all the comments on that. That was very helpful. Okay, let's move on to our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer has a presentation for us. Thank you for being here, Charlene.
Morning, everyone. I'm just going to log in so that I can share my presentation with you all. Okay, is everyone, you can see?
Yes.
Awesome. So good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you all. I'll be talking about the role of the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer and referring to the role as the CEDO. That is the acronym. People ask me that all the time. What does that even mean? So now we know Chief Equity and Diversity Officer. This particular presentation is very text heavy, and I did that for the public and for those who would not be here today or would watch later on. So I'm going to give a high-level overview. I won't be reading every single bullet. You guys, if you have any questions at the end, you can ask me. So our agenda for today is as follows. We'll talk about the role of the CEDO. We'll talk about centering equity. I've been on an environmental scan. Then it was really great that Karen went before I did, because we'll be talking about how that embedding equity will run in an integration of the strategic plan. And then we'll talk about the CEDO and the compliance officer as a current dual role. So just to review, our county values are as follows: integrity, accountability, equity, respect. I felt like it's a great way for us to start off this presentation. And then our diversity statement. I'll read it out loud. Tompkins County Government centers diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are committed to the empowerment of employees and residents to dismantle systemic barriers and inhibit inclusive governance and the provision of government services for all. So right now, we are looking to operationalize this statement. It sounds really good. It's amazing. People worked on it very hard. But we want to make this real. We want to bring this into fruition. So I wanted to just read that for us. Now, currently our organizational structure, this is a high-level view in relation to the CEDO, is as follows. Policy decisions are made by the county legislature. The organizational oversight is by our county administrator. And then the CEDO reports to the county administrator and centers equity throughout the organization. So I'll talk about the role of the CEDO, but first I'll provide you with a little bit of context. So these events that I'll discuss occurred prior to my tenure. And so it's important to note that the CEDO position was established following a comprehensive climate survey that was conducted in 2018. And the survey identified a clear need for dedicated leadership in advancing organizational DEI initiatives through a racial justice lens. Now, in response to the survey findings, Team JEDI, which is a cross-departmental team, was formed to address DEI issues collaboratively. And that team's initial recommendation was to appoint a staff leader to spearhead DEI efforts within the organization. And this recommendation laid the groundwork for the creation of the CEDO position. Concurrently, those efforts were underway to formalize the county's commitment to DEI through the establishment of organizational values, which were spearheaded by a staff committee, and the establishment of a diversity statement, which ran in conjunction with the then CEDO and WDIC. Over the past 5 years, these initiatives have been integral to institutionalizing DEI principles within the organization, within the organization, and fostering a culture of inclusivity and equity. So as you can see, the role of the CEDO as a member of the senior leadership team, I review organizational policies and procedures for compliance, equity, and change management, developing strategic communication, serving as a liaison to the community to raise awareness, and then analyzing organizational data to address systemic and structural changes that are occurring within the organization. Now, centering equity. Centering equity is one of our goals currently, and this will run in conjunction with the strategic plan. But I'll give you a little bit of insight in terms of why we want to do this and what the process will be in order for us to get there so we can achieve those outcomes. So right now, our current centering equity landscape looks like the following. I wanted to give you guys a visual of our infrastructure. So we have our Tompkins County values, we have our diversity statement, we have the CEDO who spearheads the work. Then we have our legislative subcommittee, which is WDIC, and our internal core equity team, which is JEDI. Now, so far, our organization has undertaken various initiatives focusing on training and data collection and awareness building around DEI. And while these efforts have been valuable in raising awareness and promoting understanding, we've identified a critical gap in our infrastructure when it comes to approaching DEI work systematically. And so our goal for centering equity would be to address this gap effectively so that we're able to develop an equity action plan that can guide our efforts in that systematic approach in a cohesive manner. Right now, I would like for you guys to think of our infrastructure as a squid or an octopus. And all these tentacles are out there, right? But the centralized space is the head of that octopus, and that is really what we're focusing on in terms of how we embed the equity. So right now, some of our tentacles are as follows. We have the senior leadership team, we have new employee orientation, We had our climate survey, which is usually conducted every 2 years, but has been halted because of COVID and will be administered in 2025. We have our workforce diversity and inclusion policy, our WDIC committee, policy and compliance review, our internal core equity team. We have on-site guidance for our department heads, and we promote education and awareness. Now, all of those things are fine, but like I said, they are decentralized. So we're looking to centralize that and disseminate it across the organization. So what I've done is I've gone on an environmental scan. I've been here for 8 months on Friday. So I wanted to assess the organization to provide senior leadership with an opportunity to see where the organization is in relation to the embedding equity goal and how we would be able to get there. So the purpose of the environmental scan was to gather insights. I wanted to see initiatives that have been done, challenges, successes, any support needs that departments had. And then I wanted to understand our DEI exposure in relation to training and commitments within specific departments. And the way I did that was data collection, both qualitative and quantitative. The qualitative piece was a listening tour. I met with department heads and their leadership teams within their departments. And then the quantitative was an anonymous survey, 2 minutes, that was distributed to the workforce by department. Now, the analysis of this would provide us with the integration of both the qualitative and quantitative survey results, and it's really to identify those key themes and patterns across departments. And those outcomes will provide findings and insights on future DEI strategies that we could perhaps engage in. But what I'm really looking for is the recommendations for addressing those challenges or support needs of departments in relation to that embedding equity. So some of our high-level themes, and as I wrap up the environmental scan, there will be more information around this, but I wanted to give you some high-level themes. Most of our department heads are really looking to diversify their workforce, and they believe that if they're able to diversify their workforce, they'll be able to increase culture and morale, have a coherent approach to DEI, and really have like those intentional efforts to address how they impact the community with their services, whether they're service delivery or resource allocations. Now you say, why go on an environmental scan? Well, I needed to assess the impact. And the reason why I wanted to assess the impact is because we want to embed equity across the organization based on departmental scope. Not a one-size-fits-all, but provide each department with a framework and a roadmap on how they can specifically engage in equity, embedding equity based on their own departmental initiatives and goals. Now, how we plan to do that is to integrate embedding equity into the strategic plan. So you guys just saw our strategic planning draft. And so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about, by developing a countywide action plan, we have the opportunity to elevate our DEI efforts here at the county and really elevate them based on our effectiveness and our direct impact, whether that's internal or external. Internally with our staff and externally with the communities that we serve. So the plan will serve as a comprehensive roadmap, providing us with a shared framework that guides our organization in advancing that equity across all facets of our operations. Now, the way we would operationalize that is by adopting a comprehensive framework. And we would move into evaluating our existing policies and practices to identify any areas of improvement or promotion of equity. And then we would ensure that that alignment is running in tandem with the goals and objectives that are going to drive that organizational change through the strategic plan. Now, the components of this equity report or equity action plan will be data-driven. There'll be evaluations and outcomes. We will be able to identify those key equity indicators. And then, as I said, that octopus head would allow us to centralize the experience and disseminate it across the organization. So we move from the tentacles to the central space, in which the senior leadership team of Tompkins County has been operationalizing a lot of the work that we do to have a more cohesive approach to our operations countywide. So this would just run in tandem with what is already happening at the county. So our intended outcomes would be to enhance organizational accountability and transparency. That came up a lot in our focus groups with the strategic planning and throughout my environmental scan. People are looking for accountability and transparency, but really it's about how they can enhance their practices versus looking at what they're doing right or wrong. So that'll give us a way to benchmark and progress that tracking with metrics. And then it'll align the strategic plan objectives and that adopted framework, providing us with those recommendations and enhancements for those strategic planning deliverables. And then in terms of the community, as you said, Amanda, we have that external way that we engage with our community. We can have an enhanced responsiveness to those community needs, where we can address communities based on what their needs are and not what we believe their needs are. Now, lastly, the CEDO and the compliance officer. This is a dual role. Now, the compliance officer's role mainly monitors regulatory compliance with federal, state, and local requirements, and that is done by studying existing and new legislation. In conjunction with that, the compliance officer coordinates compliance efforts countywide in a collaboration with the risk and compliance coordinator, as well as a compliance committee, which is comprised of department heads and subject matter experts in relation to compliance. Now, someone may ask, why CEDO and compliance together? What is the integration? So it's a dual role. Now, the CEDO serves as the compliance officer to ensure equity practices align with legal requirements. And that synergy is that the compliance efforts support equity goals and vice versa. They work in tandem with each other to have a comprehensive approach to organizational governance. And then the alignment is that both roles contribute to a culture of, once again, that accountability, that transparency, and that fairness within the organization. And that is it for me. Does anyone have any questions?
That was great. So much information.
A lot.
We'll all have to process it a little bit more. But
Okay.
Mike?
Yeah, we went through that very quickly and.
Sorry, hang on. Could you just take that off so we can
yes.
see Susan?
Yes, sorry about that.
Very interesting. I had a couple
Sorry,
questions.
Susan.
How do we work with our labor unions? I realize this is we're trying to focus on our employees naturally in our hiring processes and things. Do we develop a good relationship with the leadership of the labor unions so that we can help them get buy-in on some of the things we're trying to do?
Absolutely. That has been a conversation that both myself and the Commissioner of Human Resources has been having. So I have a equity internship team, and we've been doing a lot of research around our employees, the demographics, what the metrics are currently. So as we start to develop this equity plan, we will address our relationships with the labor unions and really see how we can integrate their policies with our policies, where it's more of, it's not them versus us or us versus them. We just provide a cohesive, what is the word I'm looking for? Like an environment for our staff where they understand that both the county and their unions are in favor of how they operate within our organization in relation to equity.
That would be, I think, very helpful and seamless if we could do something like that.
Yes.
The other question I had was, we live in a community surrounded by communities where a lot of our workforce comes in from, with not a lot of diversity, certainly with minorities, diversity with sex and sexual identity, of course, and things like that. But how do we decide when we have met a goal that we have, and understanding that it's very, very hard to often hire people because the numbers of people that are applying may not be as diverse as we would like to see?
Yes, that is something that I've been turning my head trying to find the answer to. So I'll just talk about what best practice.
I'm not trying to pin you down. I'm just saying, because that's a real hard one.
It is. So I'll share what best practices are based on the landscape. And so more often than not, you look at the demographics of an area, And whatever the demographics of that area is, that particular organization should reflect. So if we have 30% people who fall under protected classes, 70% people who are white, we want a workforce that reflects 70% white, 30% people who fall under protected classes, if that was our commitment. That's the first thing. That's best practices across the landscape. Now, if you find yourself where you find an organization where that might be harder because people are not applying who identify as those protected classes, now you have to do an internal assessment of that organization. What is it about our job descriptions? What is it about our outreach? What is it about our perception in the community that is causing this disconnect or this disparity in applicants, excuse me. And so at that point, research would have to happen, right? We would have to start to audit our job descriptions, look at our community engagement, talk about what does it look like for our recruitment and our retention efforts. It'll take an extra layer and an extra process to assess that in a way that provides us with not someone's bias of what they feel is happening, but give us hard, tangible data that'll drive that decision making. I hope that that was clear.
That helps.
Okay.
That helped me. Okay, I've got Susan and then Rich.
Yes, I wanted to go back and emphasize the question that Mike asked about the working with the labor unions, but I also wanted to ask about civil service. And I'm thinking back to my tenure as a director of the public library, and we really struggled with getting, how to reach out to the community and get people to apply for the positions, to understand civil service, and also to work with the union in order, to have them understand the goals of why a library needs to represent the community and why we needed greater diversity. So I just want to emphasize both of those things, and I was really glad to see them in your presentation.
Thank you,
Support that.
Susan.
I don't know if you want to talk about that anymore, but I think those are two really important areas that where I have seen a weakness in our ability to really diversify our workforce.
Yes, those came up in my environmental scan, and I just want to share that the Commissioner of Human Resources and their team have been working on demystifying, for lack of a better term, our civil service space. And as we work with the state on what that looks like, I think we'll be able to see some tangible fruits in the years to come, because that is a priority for the state. And so as that trickles down to local government, we might be able to take advantage of that in a way that's very intentional. So they have workshops on the weekend, and we're reaching out to different community stakeholders, and we're really trying to ensure that we're demystifying that process while also developing an infrastructure that allows for those fruits to bear with little to no inertia from us, right? Just the infrastructure deals with itself, and we are attracting a diverse workforce just because we have that intentional space where people can thrive and they don't just have to survive here. So we are talking about that. It's going to take a longer, it's only been 8 months since I've been here. It's going to take a longer, prudent perspective, but I think it's a goal that we could achieve through the civil service demystification process.
Thank you. Thank you. It's important work, and
Yes.
it's hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich.
I guess I'm not as optimistic about how New York State will help us with civil service, but I wish you luck there. What's the timeline for you getting the countywide equity action plan?
The timeline right now is December 31st, 2024.
Last year?
I was in last year. Forgive me. December 31st, 2024, with a goal to implement by at least February, March 2025. At least I'm looking at the cycle of when we create our work plans as an organization, and it looks like work plans and goals start to roll out in late January, early February. So if people have about a month and some change to look at the roadmap, identify the framework, how does it work within their department, work with me, work with the senior leadership team, I think we might be able to implement it across the organization by 2025.
It certainly seems like that's the critical piece to reify what you've talked about here in all your slides. Would there be a chance for us to meet with you again this year to see that as it's becoming real?
Absolutely. The goal is to be as transparent as possible, share with department heads, get their feedback, and then bring it to GO and the legislature to provide their feedback, and so that we can work together on what outcomes we believe are most important and a priority to the organization.
Yeah, I think, yeah, the more specific, the better. I had a second question, if I could.
Sure. Well, I was just going to say, too, she has a spot on our agenda every month, so you can come give us updates every month.
Yes.
I was interested in the part of your presentation on the compliance officer role, because I teach a course on compliance, so, and I was a compliance officer.
Okay.
But it looks like you have a shared responsibility with the risk and compliance coordinator, and I was wondering how do you define boundaries there?
So, well, as you know, it depends on which program we're speaking of in terms of compliance. So if we have HIPAA, we have OMEG, we have so many acronyms. So the risk and compliance coordinator heavily focuses on contracts and ensuring that the organization is compliant in relation to that. My compliance officer role focuses on what new legislation has been passed, how do we update, and how do we as an organization remain compliant in relation to those. So we have a healthy balance between the two. We meet every 2 weeks to talk about new things we've learned, anything to delegate, things of that nature. We try to have an open communication. So our boundaries and balance is more about what is your role and how do I support you in your role, and how do we collaborate on ensuring that we're doing our part in keeping our organization compliant.
Yeah, the regulatory response, I think, is fairly clear in that you look to the regulation and it slots in with either your role or the risk and compliance coordinator's role. Where I would think it would get a lot more gray is instituting county goals.
Yes.
The internal compliance efforts that we're trying to do, such as implementing our strategic plan. So it's good you're coordinating and meeting there. And I think, Amanda, did I jump ahead of Susan?
No, I think she just still has her hand up.
Okay. All right. I'd also comment, Susan, you have one of the best backgrounds for Zoom I've seen. You've got all these lines of perspective on either side of you. You look very.
Thank you.
You look very three-dimensional. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I'm sorry I had kept my hand up. I didn't mean to.
No worries, no worries.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I think that's great. Thank you so much. This is, I think, very helpful for us.
Great.
And I'm going to encourage our other legislator colleagues to watch this, because if people have questions, it's good to have this. So thanks.
Thank you.
Before you go,
Yes.
Do you have any other updates for us?
Oh, yes. So next week, Tuesday, we have our DEI Leadership Summit with Ithaca College. It starts at 12. Lunch is provided for those of you who've registered. Please show up on time. We're very, very excited. There are 3 sessions and 2 keynotes that you will, be engaging with. And I just thank Ithaca College for their space and their time. So that is my update for now.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to a couple legislature topics. And I'm going to look at Katrina because she had something she wanted to say to us.
I just wanted to give you a little update on our move to new software. In preparation for that, we've looked at the current software that we use in our current program, MinuteTrack, and the new agreement does not include backing up that information. We've used that since 2010, and I worked with Lauren, and we reached out to the software company, and we can move forward with 2 different options. There's a standard option, which comes with a cost of $12,000, and then there's an advanced option, which is $35,000. And the difference is significant because this advanced option backs up all the attachments. In 2018, Michelle worked with Greg Potter and began backing up information in Minute Track, but it only backs up the agenda packet that's produced. So anything that's added that wasn't on the agenda, all those changes to the agenda do not get included. The standard version also includes a backup of all minutes, which is the official record of the office, but to go and produce a previously adopted resolution, I would have to go to the minutes basically and cut and paste. So it's a little different there. It doesn't back up. I know we've had requests recently, like for seekers and stuff like that, that are added to the system afterwards, after the meeting, with like signatures and everything. So those documents do not get backed up in the standard edition. So I'm asking if we could move to the advanced backup, and there's two ways we can move forward. We could ask for it out of contingent fund, or it could be included in a 2025 OTR for the budget process moving forward. Because these would not happen until 2025.
What's the cost differential again?
It's $12,000 versus $35,000.
That's a lot of backup.
I did ask.
And is that an annual expense?
No, that's a one-time expense.
Okay.
Is there a difference in the ongoing licensing cost, or?
No, this is a one-time expense. And I did ask Lauren. Lauren said that the $12,000 was a no-brainer, and he said the $35,000 is feasible. He said that's pretty much standard cost.
Mike, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering, do we have to come up with the full 35,000? Is there something in the budget now for this?
There is not. This was not included in.
But you don't need it.
I won't need it till 2025. I won't need it till I move forward and complete the change to a Legistar.
Yeah, it seems to me that it ought to be talked about at budget.
Yeah. Yeah. Rich?
When we do talk about it at a budget, I would support.
Thank you.
Yeah. Norma?
I just wanted to ask, so you're bringing this up now, though, because you have to make a commitment to the.
I do. I have to make a commitment because we're kind of at a standstill with moving to Legistar, because I need to make sure that the current information is back, that I have access to it. And then the current agreement runs out in December of this year with Minute Track.
Okay. So you kind of need to know.
Yeah. I mean, I'll come to budget next week too. That's.
Yeah, yeah. Rich?
I would suggest we do a motion right now to authorize this going forward, and that it'll go into the budget as base budget.
I did talk to Lisa, and she said she would be supportive of it as an OTR.
But
moving to 2020, because it's a one-time cost, there's no impact on the tax
But I think
levy.
this would be a way for it to get in front of 14 people
Yeah,
to say,
sooner.
yep,
Yeah.
this is how we will decide at budget time. Well, pre-budget, you know?
We're making a budget decision early for budget.
Yeah.
Make a budget recommendation early.
Budget recommendation.
Yeah, however we want to use the language, but I think that would give the direction that Katrina needs. So I would make that motion.
Okay. Somebody want to second that? Susan will second that. So say it again. So we're recommending.
Yeah, we're making a budget recommendation for 2025 that the advanced version of the,
Software.
what's the title of the software?
It would, Minute Track migration, it would.
What's the name of the
Data-
new software?
The new software is Legistar. This would be coming out of our current, this would be
Yeah.
backing up our current
Yeah,
software.
that we will want the advanced version of the Legistar software to allow us to complete the migration from Minute Track.
All right, excellent. Any more discussion about that? All right, let's vote on that. Susan?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm yes. So that passes, and you said you're going to also talk to Budget Committee.
I can go ahead and add it to, do you want me to prepare that as a resolution, or, and then it'll go to all 14?
Yeah.
Okay. I will go ahead and do that, and we'll get it on budget. For next week.
Actually, you should ask Mike, because he's budget.
I'll think about it. No, of course.
I didn't want to step on your toes.
Okay, all right, great. Thanks for bringing that to us. Okay, the next topic is, Katrina's going to have to help me walk through this. This is something that Dan brought up. We're not voting on this resolution, but there's some wording that I guess was not clear. And so this resolution is an old resolution, and the question is related to...
I'm sorry, where are we?
Page 42.
Yeah, 42, but actually page 43. And the question is related to, at the top there, to instead have the chair of the legislature appoint and the legislature approve of the appointment. So it's the language related to how the appointments are made. And Katrina also looked up the IDA's bylaws, which also has that language. But I guess it's a little unclear, like the chair makes the appointments, but I don't know that we ever actually approve them. Is that?
We always used to.
We do, the legislature does confirm them in a resolution, because we do IDA appointments annually,
Right.
and those are all listed in that resolution.
So what was Dan's question?
He's not here.
Let me see what he said. Hang on.
I don't have the email. He did plan on being here.
All right, give me 1 second here, because I did have it. I thought the question was related to how the appointment was made.
I think he was questioned as to why he makes the chair's appointment, and then we also do the resolution, but that comes from the IDA bylaws.
Yeah. My apologies, I can't find it. I'm not prepared.
Why don't we put it over till next time?
Yeah.
No action for us to take, so.
Jordan found the email, Amanda, that you had forwarded.
okay.
She's going to forward it to both you and I.
It just has the little bit of a cut and paste that you had emailed me, just to.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's see. What does Dan say? Okay, there's wording in the IDA appointments resolution language that is different from other appointments. The people in the resolution shall be appointed by the chair of the legislature, subject to the approval of the legislature. This seems to lie somewhere between the chair's appointments, which don't require a vote, and other appointments that do get a legislature vote.
You approve, right?
Yeah.
So
Mike?
And I thought that's the way we always did it. The chair would put the people down, and then there'd be a resolution that we would adopt ratifying that at the legislature.
That is how we've currently done it. Dan, I do believe, or the chair makes the appointment the second meeting in January, and usually that resolution follows in February, either the first or second, depending on the timing.
I mean, he's saying that the IDA appointments are different than other appointments, and maybe that was the question?
I think that's probably the question.
Why is the IDA different?
That came from their bylaws.
Right.
So we'd have to update their bylaws.
But there's no real, I mean, they can be different.
They can.
Different appointments are different. Okay, well, I'm glad we spent 5 minutes on this.
I do think that was what his question was,
Yeah.
like where it came from, and that's,
Right. It came from their bylaws. Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next topic is to just look over some sections of the charter. We had talked about our goals for the year, including we're not doing any changes to the charter right at this moment, but just looking through some sections for our own education, but also in relation to the changes coming up in education law, in elections law, as well as the changes a year and almost a half from now, where we will have an increased number of legislators. So I thought that also this section related to the county legislature was interesting to put on the agenda today because it has a mission statement of the Tompkins County Legislature. And it's a bit wordy, but yeah, so this is just a chance for conversation. If things jumped out at you, there was already one section I think that we will have to change based on the change in elections law. But so I'll just open it up for any comments or discussion folks would like to have. Mike.
Yeah, C 2.02 talks about odd-numbered years, so we would have to change that in compliance with the new state law. That there is a lawsuit going on with that. Onondaga County is challenging it, and they're a charter county, and they're saying their charter under home rule law has to have precedence. And I don't know if that would affect us or not, or whether we'd want to change it to have it different than everybody else is doing. So I would like to see us think about correcting that. The other one, and this is something that we've talked about before, and I really think would be important to change, that's in 2.03. It says the composition of the legislature is of not less than 11 nor more than 19 members elected from single-member districts. I would like to see us reduce that number. I would like to see 11 to 15, and I would like to see it say there needs to be an odd number. So I would say 11, 13, or 15.
Okay. Rich?
That's interesting. Because we just had the redistricting commission push us to 16, so wouldn't we be on a collision course with what they just decided?
No, you could just simply say that after this next election or the next term, it would change. They redistrict again after the 2030
Yeah.
thing.
I'm saying that I generally agree with you. I think 16 is too many.
Yeah, I think it should be an odd number, and I think it should be 11, 13, or 15. We had 15 forever until they changed it to 14 here after the last census, or the last census ago, and then they changed it. Now they want it to be 16. And
Yeah.
I asked at that time, as you recall, for them to relook at that, and they did, but they didn't make any changes. I certainly wanted to support our redistricting process. I was one of the authors of it, and but I do think that that's the wrong way to go. Particularly, most counties are reducing the numbers of legislators that I've seen, and it doesn't happen too often, but we have resolutions or motions that are lost on a divided vote, and I don't think we should be doing that. So that's my thought about changes here.
Okay. I'm thinking that the best way to go about this, because I think we're going to have some more charter sections at our next, meetings throughout the year, is that maybe our clerks will take note of these things and we can kind of compile a list, and then towards the end of the year, or whenever we get to that point, we'll have this list of things that we can talk about each, issue individually and have votes on whatever makes sense. Does that work for folks?
Yes.
Okay. So you guys are going to keep track of what we're suggesting. So we've already got C 2.02 and C 2.03. Rich.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a commentator that would write on New York civil procedure, and he always gave the good advice to learn about brand new changes in law in somebody else's case. If Onondaga County is going through the expense of litigating this, maybe we just sit on C 2.02 till we see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we're not under the gun to change it, but just flag.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It happens. Susan.
Yeah, I just wondered if, we started out with the mission statement. Will be perhaps review, maybe we could review that after the strategic plan and the county mission statement to see if they're in sync.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting one because
Yeah.
I remember at the beginning of the strategic plan process, the consultants looked at our mission statement, and this is a mission statement of or for the legislature. So it was a little unclear, like, is this just for the legislature or is it for the government, or what is it for? So I think it's worth trying to think about this, and I mean, is it even like what we agree with, or should the mission statement in the charter be, our new strategic plan? So I guess I'm interested in thoughts on that. And then I think Katrina can correct me, the sort of standard charter review where every section is looked at is still several years away.
It's 2027.
Oh, so not that many years away.
I think we adopted, our last one was 2017. So.
Okay. Mike.
I was just racking my brain trying to figure out why we put a mission statement in.
Yeah.
I can't remember the genesis of that. I wish Dooley and Kathy were here, and they were the experts on that kind of thing. But I remember going through the mission and vision process for the whole organization quite a number of years ago. I would guess 15 years ago or something. And I'm guessing maybe it popped up at that point saying we ought to put it in the charter, but that's the best I can recollect.
I'm not sure there should be a mission statement in the charter because it's going to change.
I think you're right.
Yeah, every couple years or every 5 years or something, the mission will constantly change. So maybe we get to, we see where we are when we get to the end of this strategic planning process and see how we might want that to be reflected in the charter or not,
Maybe we could look and see whether it was in the charter before the last charter review.
Okay, so.
One more.
Yep, go ahead.
Looking at the mission, the block of text and then what's underneath it, it does seem to survive the test of time. That I don't know that it's generic enough and broad enough. I guess life would go on if we didn't have it at all, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, I mean, some actually overlap, you know. Yeah. Other thoughts? I guess add that to the list of things that we will further consider. I had just a question about C 2.08, the powers and duties of the chair of the legislature. I mean, these are kind of the very specific things. I just wondered if there was more things that were like legal things or other things that we wanted to point out. I mean, that the chair has to do. Maybe I'm not fully sure what I'm saying, but.
I think there are other things. And I look at what's here, and B doesn't really apply. I don't think the chair.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Chair doesn't appoint or approve us going to NISAC.
Right, we changed that. So that's, yeah. Mike.
I think the first sentence there, it's determinative. It says the chair, in addition to the powers and duties conferred or imposed upon the chair of a county legislative body by applicable law. I think that refers to county law.
Yeah.
And there are things like the chief elected official and things like that, or I'm pretty sure are mentioned there, maybe in the public officers law.
Right.
So I think that these are things that they wanted to add besides that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I just thought maybe that's something if we need to think more about, or I think we do need to change that section B. But if there are other things that, you know, we feel like should be listed here, we should add them. And then I also found it interesting that we can subpoena witnesses. We should do that sometime. Just to see what happens.
I note that power is devolved to the Ethics Advisory Board as well. Right. And we considered whether to do that, use that power. It's subject to approval by the legislature, but we decided we did not want to.
Yeah, right.
Has it ever been done? I mean,
not to my knowledge.
Has anyone ever been subpoenaed?
People are shaking their heads, no.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree, Amanda.
I think that comes out of county law too.
Should do it, yeah.
Do it.
Lori's smiling. Maybe we could subpoena her to a meeting.
It's like we can, I think somewhere here we can enforce attendance. We can send the sergeant at arms out to
right. I
drag
think
somebody in.
In the next section that we might look at next month, there is a section about attendance and if you don't attend, 3 times in a row, you can be kicked off.
Wow.
Amanda, just so you know, I have a delivery coming to my house at noon, so I apologize. I've got about 7 minutes.
Well, I think we're about done with that. Let's, I don't have any updates or report. I'll look at Norma and Lisa if you have administration reports.
Just very quickly, I wanted to kind of bring to your attention that we are investigating, we Central Administration are investigating a procurement and contract software to try to find some efficiencies there. Right now we're using contract software that's almost, it has very limited search capabilities, and when it's time for the folks in finance to go through the audits, it's a very labor-intensive process to get that data back out of the system. And just to find a way that we can have contracts and procurement kind of mixed together, because when we're talking to folks, that's one of the places where it gets a little confusing because we have to go to multiple systems. This, of course, will not be free, so we'll come back with some ideas about what that might cost, but I know we're working together with finance to find where our cost savings would be if we were to implement software like that, so trying to find the balance there. Also, through our central administration, we're looking at finding efficiencies in the way that we submit budget transfers and adjustments. So those are all right now they're all being done through an Excel spreadsheet in multiple different formats. Through ITS is helping us develop a process where folks can enter it into our Laserfish system and be able to submit that. So, and the beauty of that will be, hopefully, will be a data file so that it actually limits the amount of data entry points for the finance office. So we're hoping that's a time saver for them. And then just finally, HR has been working also to develop a 428 system for folks to be able to, again, it's systematize that process. So just kind of just information right now, but stay tuned. We might come back and ask for money.
428?
420 is, 428 is the document that either transfers employees between departments, changes information about them, or it's also the same form that's used to hire.
I knew that, of course.
You did, of course, yes. But thank you for asking that question for everybody else that didn't know that.
The contract software you're looking at, would that speak to the budget software?
Actually, it would be directly integrated. It's built by the same company, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? I think that's great. Thanks for the updates.
Yep.
Lori, Director of Finance, any updates or report?
I don't have anything for today. Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. Dominic, Communications
I just say something?
Director. Oh, sure, sorry.
Not us, but I read the article about the city of Ithaca.
Yes.
They're
bond rating.
So far behind in their audits that their bond rating has been withdrawn. And that's kind of scary. I don't know whether that has any reflection on anything we're doing with them, but I know we don't want to have to get into a situation like that. I know you're working very hard on all our audits.
Yeah, Rich?
Yeah, I did read that article. Thanks for bringing it up, Mike. I think that the statement, nobody's losing sleep over this, was truly unfortunate.
Shocking.
You know,
yeah.
At least without knowing. Yeah, without knowing what the differential in interest approximately. I mean, you can't tell on a band what it would have sold for at a better credit rating, but stay awake.
Yeah.
The other thing, Lori, I wanted to say is thank you for changing the format on your presentation. It popped. It was good. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Dominic.
Thanks. I have a few brief updates. As you all know, we are working through a revamp of the county's website, and I wanted to provide you with just a very brief update about where we are in that. Right now, we're in what's called the content rationalization process. We're reviewing all content on the Tompkins County website. That's around 1,000 pages of information spread across all of our departments, many thousands of PDFs and documents and attachments that are on there that are all being reviewed by department to be migrated. That's a very big lift, but it's been a great process to work with departments to look at how they want to lay out their information differently. I've provided each department with the ability to find all broken links and misspellings and inaccurate information so that we're able to update that. So that's been moving forward. Right now, when that process completes, we'll be moving into the design process of the site. So I think it might be beneficial to have a couple more minutes on the next agenda to discuss the wireframe and design for the new website of how someone will navigate our resources. But that's been really exciting, and the company we're working with has been really creative and great, and they're the same company that's providing the Legistar software that Katrina was talking about. So that's been a great process so far. In the last meeting, there was also some discussion around public information around assessments and how assessments work in Tompkins County. I have a document that I'll hand out to folks. I worked with Jay and Irene in their office to put together a one-pager of how assessments work in Tompkins County, something we've started distributing to municipal officials. You all would have received an email this morning just with my notes from the elected officials call, and I attached it. We'll be sharing it with realtors and other stakeholders in the area, so I'll pass some of those around. And it's going to have a companion video as well that Rob, Jay, Irene, and I are working on that describes how an assessment works, why one property may be valued more than others, how they increase or decrease accordingly. You know, it's a little difficult being that so many of the questions and the community conversation has already happened and we're doing this now, but I think it'll get us ahead of time for future cycles. But I know that was a conversation here and I just wanted to close that loop. And the last thing I'll briefly mention is that the Public Information Advisory Board held their networking event with elected officials and members of the media last week. Thank you, Amanda, for serving on the elected officials panel. I've heard a lot of positive feedback from folks, and the networking that occurred in that meeting, that event was really positive. So thank you for your support on that work as well. That's all I have.
Yeah, it was a great meeting, and there was lots of folks there, and I think, you know, just the, you know, casual conversations, but also the, you know, panel discussions. I think it all was very helpful for both sides. Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the work on the assessment. That is something that I hear from my district about continuously, so that will be very useful, very helpful. I was sorry to be sick and miss the meeting last Wednesday. Would that be something that would happen on a semi-regular basis? I mean, I was very interested to come. I heard very good things about it with the media. So what do you think? Is it something we could do again?
Yes, I was going to propose to the Public Information Advisory Board that it be an annual event.
That's great.
And I think there's some other things to build off of it that are some great opportunities as well. So I'm thinking it's the start of a more frequent type of interaction. So thanks, Susan.
Great idea.
Yeah, great idea.
Great idea.
Yeah, and this assessment sheet looks great. So if we can get this out far and wide, that's awesome. Okay, Rich.
Just what Susan said about the assessment, it's really timely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There's a lot of discussion seeming to go on right now.
I'll make sure you have the video as soon as it's published. We're working through some things on that. So thank you.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you for your work on that.
I said I would try to come to the PIAB, but the last meeting didn't work on my calendar. When is our next meeting?
The next meeting is next Tuesday at 1 o'clock, I believe. Bruce, the chair, has been ill, so hasn't sent the, I don't know if the next agenda has been sent, but it's on my list today to check in on.
Tuesday the 9th we're talking about?
Yes, Tuesday the 9th. It coincides with the event that Charlene is hosting, so it may actually be a lightly attended PAB meeting. Unfortunately, I think there are some folks who will cross over, and it would be recurring on that Tuesday.
I want to try to do that if I can, and I'm sorry I couldn't make your other presentation, but that didn't work on my calendar either. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have some resources to send to everyone following up that event as well, based on the discussion that happened.
There's a lot of meetings and events and everything going on right now. I think we're all...
April and May have always been a huge...
Very busy. Thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you.
Any updates or comments from committee members? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Good discussions, as always. Thanks for all the information and all the good work. So we are...
Susan, we hope you feel better.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's nice to see you. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.